Hello. For World Empowering Lumen Congress on Multidimensional Education, welcome 22, November 22nd till 26, 2022, Iași, Romania. Mirela, Anghel and Nicoleta Aurora Popescu have prepared the presentation on education and communication. The necessity of teaching and learning for the continued existing of a society is of utmost importance, and talks about it cannot exhaust it ever. Schools are, indeed, a very useful method of transmitting information, though it cannot be considered the only one. We have only grasped the necessity of education for a better and healthy society. The existence of the society is based upon a process of transmission quite as much as a biological one. This transmission occurs by means of communication, of habits of doing, thinking, and feeling from the older to the younger. Without this communication of ideals, hopes, expectations, standards, opinions, values from those members of the society who are passing out to the group life, to those who are coming, social life could not basically survive. A continuous cycle of transmitting all these qualities is important for the educational process. Our topic focuses on the importance of communication in establishing, promoting, and enriching the educational process. We might regard education as a life necessity, being the most notable distinction between living and the inanimate things is that the former maintains themselves by a renewal. The primary ineluctable facts of the birth and death of each one of the constituent members in a social group determine the necessity of education. On one hand, there is a contrast between the immaturity of the newborn members of the group, its future sole representatives, and the maturity of the adult members who possess the knowledge and customs of the group. On the other hand, there is the necessity that these immature members be not merely physically preserved inadequate members, but that they may be and they could be initiated into the interests, purposes, information, skill, and practices of the mature members. Otherwise, the group will cease its characteristic life. Even in an established tribe, the achievements of adults are far beyond what the immature members would be capable of if left to themselves or to their own devices. With the growth of civilization, the gap between the original capacities of the immature and the standards and customs of the elders increases. Mere physical growing up, mere mastery of the bare necessity of subsistence will not suffice to reproduce the life of the group. Society exists through a process of transmission quite as much as biological life. This transmission occurs by means of communication, of habits of doing, thinking, feeling from the older to the younger. Without this communication of ideals, hopes, expectations, standards, opinions, from those members of society who are passing out to the group life, to those who are coming into it, social life could not survive. If the members who compose a society lived on continuously, they might educate the newborn members, but it will be a task directed by personal interest rather than social need. Now, it is a work of necessity. So obvious indeed is the necessity of teaching and learning for the continued existence of a society that we may be seen to be dwelling unduly on a truism, but justification is found in the fact that such emphasis is a means of getting us away from unduly scholastic and formal notion of education. Schools are, indeed, one important method of transmitting information, though, especially in our day and age with the informational knowledge, at ease, society not only continues to exist by transmission, by communication, but it may be fairly to be said to exist in transmission. There is more than a verbal tie between the words common, community, and communication. Men live in a community in virtue of the things which they have in common, and communication is the way in which they come to possess things in common. What they must have in common in order to form a community or society are aims, beliefs, aspirations, knowledge, basically a common understanding, like-mindedness, as the sociologist would say. Such things cannot be passed physically from one to another like bricks. They cannot be shared as persons would share a pie by dividing it into physical pieces. The communication which ensures participation in a common understanding is one which secures similar emotional and intellectual dispositions, like ways of responding to expectations and requirements. We are thus compelled to recognize that within even the most social groups there are many relations which are not as yet social. A large number of human relationships in any social group are still upon the machine-like plane. Individuals who use one another so as to get desired results without reference to the emotional and intellectual disposition and consent of those used. Such uses express physical superiority or superiority of position, skill, technical ability, command of tools, mechanical or physical. So far as the relations between a parent and a child, teacher and pupil, employer and employee, governor and governed, remain upon this level, they form no true social group, no matter how closely their respective activities touch each other. Giving and taking of orders modifies action and results, but does not of itself effect a shaping of purposes, a communication of interests. Not only is social life identical with communication, but all communication, and hence all genuine social life, is educative. To be a recipient of communication is to have an enlarged and changed experience. One shares in what other has thought and felt, and insofar, meagerly and amply, has its own attitude modified. Nor is the one who communicates left unaffected. The experience has to be formulated in order to be communicated. To formulate requires getting outside of it, seeing it and another will see it, considering what point of contact it has within the life of another, so that it may be got in such a form that he can appreciate its meaning. In conclusion, not only does social life demand teaching and learning for its own permanence, but the very process of living together educates. It enlarges and enlightens experience. It stimulates and enriches imagination. It creates responsibility for accuracy and vividness of statement and thought. A man really living alone mentally or as well as physically, would have little or no occasion to reflect upon his past experience to extract its net meaning. The inequality of achievement between the mature and immature not only necessitates teaching the young, but the necessity of this teaching gives an immense stimulus to reducing experience to that order and form which will render it most easily communicable and hence most usable. As Anghel would say, communication is a human process that involves the sender and the transmission, a channel, and also the very special response that is feedback. Thank you for your attention.